Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Paul7931 as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen. This is from an act named Cory Wong. It is titled Welcome to Minneapolis, featuring Victor Wooten, who is one of my favorite bassists. And we're going to listen through this track from start to finish. We're going to hear what we think. It should be noted that this is a live performance as noted in the title at the Riviera Theatre, so without further ado, let's go. It's funky as hell, isn't it? Great sort of sense of movement, the brass and the offbeat accents on the and there, or the and of the one, I suppose. Very used to cowbell accent those hits as well. And there's just a fantastic movement overall, sense of chemistry between different band members. I kind of feel like we're getting teased a little bit, like we go for a vocal line, but then we go back to the instrumental motif. Really spooky tone on that key lead though. But the joy on the faces of the people there is fantastic, you know, it's infectious. I mean, like the lead work as well from Cory is just so effortless. There's such a smoothness to it, but there's also a lot of technicality there. It's colored by how busy everything is, but it definitely exists. And the tapping is extreme, dude. I'm sorry. Was that just a pinch? Did he manage to do a pinch with his finger and his thumb there? That took me by surprise. What are we doing there? No way! How do you pinch with distortion like that? The strength as well. Wow, that's tremendous technique. Dude, I didn't think it was gonna be this hard. That's one of the best bass players in the world, by the way. It makes me wonder whether this is a planned solo or an improvisation. Knowing Victor Wooten's work, I wouldn't be surprised if that was improvised. Holy shit, that was tremendous. Like, I am gobsmacked by that. I don't know if you are aware of how difficult that is, especially those wheel. Like, okay, like, I do my grade 8 basses, right? I'm a bass teacher. I teach bass to I'm a pretty okay bassist, but that is utterly sort of mind-blowing. It's boggling, dude. Holy crap. It just simmers, doesn't it? I think the strength of Cory Wong.
You got 2 bass flips and 1.
I mean, like, the strength of Cory Wong in this track, we'll talk about more in the conclusion, but I think it was letting everyone else have a turn. Because welcome to my review of this track from an act named Cory Wong, titled Welcome to Minneapolis, featuring Victor Wooten. This was not a vocal-led track. I assume this is like a welcome to the Minneapolis music scene. Maybe it is just kind of their interpretation of the vibe there. The big brass with the funkiness and everything like that. But that was spectacular. Like, that was the epitome of a live performance. And the epitome of a stellar live performance. I am gobsmacked by what we had there. I had no idea we were going to flip at that midpoint with Victor there. You know, he was very, very low-key in the first part of the track. Working with Cory Wong on the guitar, the drums, you know, the brass and the keys. Everyone was dope. We were establishing a motif, a kind of chord progression, a movement there, an idea, a concept. And what I appreciate is that this just took a turn with Victor coming in as the lead focus here. I appreciate the fact that Cory has allowed Victor to just shred their stuff. And like that, it's one of the best bass solos I think I've ever seen in my entire life. If I'm honest with you, I have only really started getting into Cory Wong stuff, so that's why I'm thankful to people such as Paul7931 and people, you know, like a lot of the other SSP patrons putting these tracks through. But the interpretation of this track for me was that we had, you know, an ABA structure with it. At 5 minutes 30, it was incredibly well fleshed out. We had a great sense of chemistry between the band members, with again being there the bass, guitars, keys, drums, and brass. And if I talk about a few of those different elements there, because we had again like a riff, a core riff that we kind of embellished and fluctuated with and sort of jammed and up on. I'm wondering again if that was an improvised bass solo. And then we came back out, we had a big bell curve, and we simmered like that. With the understanding that Cory is the front person, we look at the guitars first if we're going to look at this track from an instrumental perspective or a per track thing, you know. And the guitars were mesmerizing. Just the consistency of the rhythm, it was like a metronome. We focused on bar chords there. We had a great sort of 16th note, got a pattern to it. There was exploration around the upper register, or the upper fretboard, in regards to like the melodic sections going into Victor Wooten's solo. But traditionally we were kind of either rolling with octaves or bar chords. We might have had a few little bendy bits, you know, like a little bit of sort of variation within the tails. But we basically were very, very conservative throughout outside of that. And the guitar was never like the main focal point, which is part of what I like about this track. Is like we weren't doing what a lot of the time you get a person, they play a guitar and you know there's going to be like a guitar solo or something. It's nice to have those expectations averted. I think part of why Cory maybe kept their guitar parts relatively minimalist was to allow for example, the drums to have that range there with a wide variety of grooves and chops there. Now the drummer had a great sense of pattern and sort of tempo We didn't stuff up once. It was just tight the entire time, going into 30 seconds occasionally on the hi-hats. The consistency of the 8th and 16th note grooves there on the drums, hi-hats, and kicks was absolutely stellar and very respectable. We had occasional fills, but it was more about like the chord note accent, keeping forward, keeping things festive, keeping things driving, so to speak, and you really can't fault it. The drummer looked like they were having a tremendous time. There was a lot of joy. In fact, everyone on stage looked like they were having a great time, and they were, they're all instrumentalists who understood their purpose and their position and how to put a lot in without overplaying or overstepping the mark. And I don't think the drummer pocketed in this one. We had a lot of range to different grooves and patterns and stuff like that. But we also knew to sort of bring it down a little bit to make room for other people. I think that's just very considerate and very intelligent. I'm saving the bass for last. So the brass section was tremendous. I think there were like 6 players there playing like trombones and saxophones and trumpets and stuff like that. Could be wrong, but either way, we were in that mid to high range and we harmonized well and had a sort of a 2 to 3 note kind of chord harmony or pattern there that stuck well with the guitar and drum parts and bass parts and keys as well. It was quite elegant. It was almost like we were trying to establish a sort of support for the rest there. It was decoration, ornamentation on top, rounding out the mid to high range nicely, especially as, for example, we had that bass section which was relatively sort of stuck in the mid to low end. The guitars prominently in the mid, and the keys, we had, I think they were mostly the mids as well, even though we did have the right and left hand involved. I should know while I remember that there were 2 percussionists. Don't worry, I did notice that there were 2. They're slightly different makes up with those instruments, so I'm wondering if they had like different types of snares or different types of patterns there that were grooving alongside too. I think that the rhythm parts, the drums did sound huge because of that. But the brass just niched nicely on top. There was very little sort of like stuff outside of the traditional major and minor parts. There might have been some bluesy intonations just to help with the funkiness of some of those 7th chords and stuff like that, like Dom 7ths. But outside of that, it was just very kind of funky, very kind of energetic and spicy, but joyous at the same time. Nice mixture of legato and staccato in there as well with some of those representations. The keys. The keys I felt were reasonably well controlled and constrained. And when I say constrained, that sounds like it's a bad thing. What I mean is that I think with the amount of business we had going on with the bass and the guitar parts, as well as the drum parts and stuff like that, the keys were the organ tones, as well as the occasional sort of like wispy kind of higher lead there. They were filling niches that still existed within the arrangement. It was like they were trying to find their own space to be. I think they handled that nicely, which again is why in the like second verse or second iteration of the main theme, we had them higher than a lot of the other parts of the arrangement, simply so that they could be heard. We had glissando at the end, and like we could definitely play, and we had a dexterity and a technical prowess across the keys, enough to know when not to be there and when to sort of add a little bit of flair and style to it. But we were simply, I think, trying to sort of help the motif more than help ourselves, and I think that the key player was very respectful in that regard. Again, I think the main focus of this mix was the bass though. Victor Wooten's parts were absolutely stellar. The solo, with the mixture of slap bass, the tapping parts. There was such tension at the beginning of the solo, though, wasn't there? It had me guessing, man. I shouldn't have been guessing, really, having heard Victor's stuff. And I sound like such a fanboy. I guess I am. But I with those notes, those held notes with a crispy distortion on them, it's like, oh, wait, this is slower than I was expecting. There's tension, and then what's going to happen next? And I think that's a masterstroke, because I think we were playing slowly in a way that was almost kind of awkward so that we could justify having the tapping parts on the various strings there. Then we went like sort of full bar on some sort of slap stuff, I think. We rolled around with some root notes or some sort of pentatonic phrasings, and we had pinch harmonics as well, which were kind of dope with big bends. Big sort of slippy slidey parts as well with bends in that, which takes phenomenal strength to be able to do. And it wasn't just that we showed a clear control of the instrument, it's that it wasn't only wild, it was also tuneful. They weren't random notes. We were doing something I hadn't really seen a lot of, but we were doing it in a way where it was still conventional and still very palatable. And again, that is why Victor Wooten is one of the best bass players in the world, in my opinion. It was full of personality, had lots of twists and turns. And the best part about it was when Victor Wooten wasn't the main focal point, they didn't get their time in the spotlight, they were supporting everyone else monumentally, just minimalistically. Like it was just very kind of like Victor was pocketing when he wasn't shredding on that bass, so he was just sort of popping off, and it was really slick. It was exactly what you need. It's the epitome of a bass solo. You know, you don't just play fast notes. You've got to add a sense of style and flair to it that not only works with the backing, but also shows your personality, who you are. And it was part of what makes Victor Wooten a unique bass player. And for Cory Wong to create a piece that allows Victor to showcase things like that, it's just tremendous. It's very, again, very impressive. The motif itself, I think, is big bandish, like, welcome to the show. Look at what we're doing. Everyone kind of grooving along, having a great time. It's fun, it's exciting, it's dazzling. A little bit of sort of, again, flair with the crazy sort of zazzy stuff in the solo sections. Classiness again with Cory Wong, allowing everyone else to kind of show off with him, kind of keep things relatively chill. The chemistry is fantastic. And it's a very positive vibe overall. I'm glad I had the opportunity to be able to check through it. It was just a really friendly motif, I think, with lots of there were never any sort of dark textures with the harmonies. If they were dominant sevenths, they were kind of like that was so smooth and kind of good-natured, good-humored. You know, it was meant to be joyous, and the brightness of the overall arrangement, combined with the sort of the focus on the groove and the rhythm of it all, really showcases a track you need to be dancing to when you're not sort of when you pick up your jaw from the floor at the technique on display. But finally, the studio recording, mixing and mastering, and I think with a live performance like this, is absolutely tremendous. Clearly, commercial grade studio production here. The guitarist, bass, keys, drums, and guitar, bass, keys, drums, and brass were all leveled wonderfully within the frequency spectrum as well as in the stereo field. No weird resonant frequencies. Nothing was overprocessed. People could just play. There was dynamic range to it. It wasn't the same loudness all the time, but it was also nice and loud without pumping. I mean, effectively, this is my review of this track from an act named, Cory Wong, titled Welcome to Minneapolis, featuring Victor Wooten. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go check out their various social medias and show them some love. And stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either hell more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.